to parse on this story. For more, I want to bring in Evan Solomon, who has been listening in, host of CTV's Power Play and Question Period. All right, Evan, your take on the news we just learned.
Well, it's a bombshell. When you lose a finance minister about a year after he was reelected, in the midst of a pandemic with unprecedented deficits, as I said earlier, it's not changing your tires. It's changing your engine as you're speeding down the highway. This is a very big deal. Bill Morneau said he tendered his resignation this morning when he was asked, did the Prime Minister ask you to leave? Look, everything here is couched in political rhetoric. He says he really wants to continue serving and he's going to run to be the Secretary General of the OECD. Let me be clear. You don't step down and resign as the finance minister to run for a job that there's no guarantee you have as the Secretary General of the OECD. It was over, and it was over for a number of reasons for Bill Morneau. The $41,000 payment to the We charity, which even Mr. Morneau alluded to, but he's not going to go out and burn the team down, but he said he regrets that happened. He didn't get the bill for 3 years. That caught the Prime Minister's office by surprise. It was a major screw up. By that point, the staff of the finance minister and the staff of the Prime Minister were fighting over certain things, leaking to the press. The ethics commissioner was investigating. Somebody had to take responsibility. The Prime Minister wanted a change. The finance minister serves at his pleasure. Bill Morneau never wanted to be anything but the finance minister, and he's taken his toys and go home. Now, he's defended his record. He's going to talk about the low unemployment, the extension of CPP, the creation of things like the CERB. There are things that he will hold his head high over. But let's make no mistake. Whatever they're saying now, go home to spend time with my family or go to become the Secretary General of the OECD. This is a disastrous moment for the government. They lose a finance minister. He's resigning his seat. There's got to be a cabinet shuffle. The markets will react. This is a big victory for the opposition. And the We scandal now has claimed the second most powerful person in government, the finance minister.
And Evan, the question remains, why leave your post halfway through the end of your political career, even if you know you're not going to run again? What does that say to your constituents? What does that say about your willingness to stick it through the tough times? We're in the middle of a pandemic and the finance minister resigns. I'm curious as to the thinking behind that, to take a position or to not even take a position, to run for a position, the Secretary General of the OECD, that you don't even have a guarantee you're going to get.
Yeah, look, this is all a soft landing. Clearly something's happened here. Clearly what's happened is Bill Morneau's resigned, knowing that the political guillotine was hanging over his head, and it was just a matter of time. I think Tanya McCharles of the Toronto Star asked him if he got quit, which is a political expression, meaning Roman emperors used to do this. They would invite people to, quote, suicide. You better do it or we're going to kill you. And to save your honor, you do it. Bill Morneau saved his honor by resigning. And in return for not saying any nasty things about Justin Trudeau, in other words, they didn't want a Jody Wilson-Raybould redux, the Prime Minister is going to support his bid to become the Secretary General of the OECD. That's all political cover. What's happened is the Finance Minister and the Prime Minister reached an impasse. The Prime Minister wanted him gone. Bill Morneau would not take another job, clearly. He had become a political liability. And that, unfortunately, after 5 years in a position, has ended with this stunning resignation, as you say, less than a year after about a year after he won the election. So, yeah, for the people in his riding, they might be a little curious. Now, I should say there'll be a by-election in that riding if there's not an election beforehand. That is a highly coveted seat for a star candidate. And we'll find out who the next finance minister. My money would be on Chrystia Freeland. There is a history of prime ministers being able to appoint people to ministries without it. I told you Stephen Harper did it with someone who was in the Senate, became part of his cabinet. Jean Chrétien did it with a number of people, including Stéphane Dion. I don't see the, quote, Mark Carney appointment coming. I just don't see that happening. But we'll find out very quickly who the next finance minister will be. That's a major decision, and it can't happen soon enough It's already has to be in the cards.
Well, Evan, again, the former finance minister now, Bill Morneau, said that he met with Justin Trudeau this morning. Does it surprise you that we haven't heard a replacement yet, or is the Prime Minister, giving Mr. Morneau his time in the spotlight tonight, and then we'll have an announcement perhaps tomorrow?
Look, after what Justin Trudeau and the Liberals have been through with Jody Wilson-Raybould and Jane Philpott, the two senior ministers who both quit, they are very wary of another War of the Roses, another messy divorce. What they want is a conscious uncoupling, which is those kind of new age, yes, kind of friendly divorces. And the conscious uncoupling that has happened is clearly, look, you resign, you can say you tendered your resignation. I'm not going to say I fired you. I'll support you on this quixotic quest to be the Secretary General of the OECD. I'm not going to steal your thunder and announce a new finance minister. I'm going to give you the moment you deserve. You have served for 5 years as the second most powerful person. You've carried Canada through the economic recovery. So Liberals like this guy in many ways, even if someone said he was a tuba player in a rock band, he just didn't have a political ear on that stuff. But clearly he didn't want to step on Bill Morneau's moment because they don't want another messy divorce. Right. They don't want this resignation to happen. And then months and months of stories about internecine warfare between the Morneau camp and the Trudeau camp. They want everybody to be on their best behavior, button up, and have a conscious uncoupling, not a messy divorce. I expect, though, very soon the Prime Minister, who have probably used today to get his ducks in order, to either announce a cabinet shuffle soon and a finance minister ASAP. The markets will need one quickly.
Well, exactly. And that was sort of the gist of my question. And if they met early this morning and we're only hearing from the finance minister this evening, clearly there were some, moves in play here. He was asked directly, Evan, was there any strife between him and the Prime Minister in terms of their philosophical outlook on where the economy should go, how much money should be devoted to CERB, and that kind of thing? The closest he came was to say necessary and vigorous debate is needed between the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister. So can we read between the lines that they didn't see eye to eye on everything, nor should they?
Yeah, I think there's, I'll give a half truth on that in the sense that he's not wrong. A finance minister and a prime minister is the most important relationship, and they should have healthy disagreements on policy. Chrétien Martin did, Flaherty and Harper did, all the way through history. The finance minister and the prime minister ought to be disagreeing, and they ought to have a healthy ability to challenge each other and to disagree. I think Bill Morneau's dead on that. The question is, where does healthy disagreement become a rift? And I think what happened here was not so much a rift in all the leaks you hear about spending and whether the recovery should be a green recovery or not. Those are probably healthy debates amongst any government, including a Liberal government. But clearly they lacked faith in Bill Morneau. There had been something much worse than just the normal healthy debate. There had been a sense that his political instincts were bad. There was the disastrous testimony before the Finance Committee about that $41,000. And I don't think we should underestimate the impact that the We Charity scandal has had. It has now cost the Prime Minister his Finance Minister for sure. And even though there may be many, many reasons for everything, that one is the simplest and the most obvious.
Yeah, important to remember, though, that Bill Morneau wasn't a lifer politician. He hadn't spent much time in politics at all before they came to power, their first term. So I guess it's not necessarily surprising that he made some some would consider rookie mistakes in his first term. But Toronto Centre, the seat that he holds or held, is one of the safest Liberal seats in the country, Evan, as you alluded to. So if, say, perchance Chrystia Freeland is promoted to the position of Finance Minister, she already holds a seat. Who do you see running in that particular star candidate location?
Well, just a couple things on that. Bill Morneau did make rookie mistakes. It was a new government full of rookies, but this is year 5. There was no more time for rookie mistakes. It was his second election. He'd been the finance minister. So the tolerance for rookie mistakes went down. Let's be fair, though. Bill Morneau managed some of the spending in the most devastating crisis we've ever experienced since the Second World War, the COVID-19, massive deficits. But he'd already had a deficit problem. Bill Morneau never was one to restrain himself. The joke about him was he should live up to his name, more no, less yes, but he never seemed to say no. He always spent. But it is very rare, even if, as he said, he was only going to run for 2 terms, to quit this quickly and to quit under these circumstances and to quit and resign under these moments. There's no way to couch that as this was all part of the plan. It was my time. We need somebody else. This is amidst a major controversy under the cloud of an ethics commissioner investigation. So let's make sure we separate the substance from the spin. That's all spin. Now, Toronto Centre is coveted. Of course, people will wonder, will Mark Carney, and again, full disclosure, I've known him for a decade or more than a decade, for a long, long time. Will Mark Carney run there? I have no idea. Certainly, there will be lots of speculation because anybody who wants to be a part of the Liberal government or the Liberal Party will want to crack at that seat. But you're right to point out the 2 names you got to think about for an interim or a permanent finance minister are Chrystia Freeland and Yves Duclos, the president of the Treasury Board. The Treasury Board is known as Dr. No. They're the people, and Duclos is an economics professor. He's quiet, but the Liberals' big spending is going to stop, and they've got to figure out the recovery. So, again, my gut sense says it will be Chrystia Freeland, even though her resume isn't as deep on running a business as, say, Bill Morneau's, but she has been the minister of everything and Ms. Fix-It, and he's got a lot of faith in her, and she would become, if she becomes the finance minister, she would be one of the most powerful ministers we've seen since, I don't know, C.D. Howe in the war. She's just almost deputy prime minister, foreign affairs, the NAFTA deal. It would be an extraordinarily powerful minister in his government.
So, Evan, are the Liberals vulnerable now? Because we heard from Yves-François Blanchet, the leader of the Bloc Québécois, say that come the fall, if both the finance minister and the prime minister had not resigned or stepped down, what have you, he was going to try and trigger an election. Is this enough to appease the Bloc Québécois?
Well, maybe appease them, but this is absolutely a sign of vulnerability. You don't lose your front wheel and think the car is still driving perfectly. The Liberals are vulnerable. Does this sort of stop the appetite? And as we've said before, the weird thing about politics is when you get a big meal, it doesn't fill you up and you don't want to eat more. It makes you hungrier. So I think the opposition, who are in charge of all the committees right now, instead of saying, gosh, we've now supped on Bill Morneau, we've got him, they're going to be hungrier. And this will up the heat at those finance committees. There will be questions if Morneau resigns, what about you? So there'll be plenty of politics now to play. The heat will be turned up, not down. I think for the moment, the Prime Minister has 3 key concerns. 1, make sure after the Jody Wilson-Raybould, Jane Philpott, this doesn't cause internecine warfare and split his caucus. They've got to figure it out because, man, they are losing senior ministers a lot, this government, over the past 5 years. 2, he's got to name an interim finance minister or a permanent finance minister that settles the markets and keeps everyone cool. And then 3, he's got to figure out his cabinet shuffle and how to fend off the opposition. Because remember, Friday, the Conservatives are going to, it's the last day to vote in their leadership. Sunday night, the Conservatives are going to have a new leader. And do you think that's going to turn down the temperature? No. As they said in the great documentary Spinal Tap, it's about to go to 11.
It is about to go to 11. Evan Solomon, host of CTV's Power Play and Question Period, thank you for joining us on this Monday evening.